I'm university-based. My knowledge is academic and theoretical. I look down on him.
I look up to him because I went to college and my knowledge is vocational. And I look up to academic knowledge. I look down on her.
I work in a workshop. I don't know much. I do know my place.
I write academic articles. I look down on him.
I read academic articles. I look up to him. I look down on her because she reads Facebook.
I read Facebook. I know my place. You might recognize what we've just done as taken from a very famous presentation with John Cleese and other colleagues there. But what it does is captures the idea that it's got a wonderful name in the books, and it's called epistemic injustice. You can have all kinds of injustices. You can have racial injustice and all kinds of injustices. The word epistemic comes from the bigger word epistemology, which has got to do with ideas to do with knowledge. And it's generally held that some people, because of how they are positioned, don't know as much as other people. And what you probably got from our presentation is that there is a very good expression of epistemic injustice in different institutions. People in higher education, well-meaning or not, do tend to think that they own certain areas of knowledge. One area that they do own is the language. I work in a university, and I experience this at first hand. It is an everyday reality. My guess is that everybody in this room also experiences it in one way or another at first hand. There is a long, long tradition of people who own the language using language to their advantage. And why wouldn't they? It is to their advantage. So we tend to have this language of we academics and those practitioners. So it turns into a them and us situation. Now I'm speaking from experience here because I do work in a university at present and have worked in universities for quite some time, but I've also worked in other places. I was a deputy head teacher in a large secondary school. Some of you know this story. I took early retirement from that work, and because I had to make a living, I bought a gift shop. And I sold buckets and spades and flip-flops because we lived down on the south coast. It was a lovely little business. And at the same time as selling buckets and spades, I also studied and completed my doctorate and actually got a job, a part-time job in a university. So here's the ironic situation that we're working, one, in a practical, everyday gift shop, and two, working in a university. So how do you position yourself? How do you identify yourself? Do you see yourself as an academic or as a workplace person, or how? And how do you understand your knowledge? And how do you speak about your knowledge? At the moment, part of my work involves supervising the doctoral studies of doctoral candidates, some of whom, most of whom now, are my colleagues. They also have been teachers in different workplaces, in different teaching contexts. I see myself and other colleagues in higher education as practitioners in a workplace called a university. There is no difference, in my view, to a workplace called a university and a workplace called a shop. We are all working for a living, and why would we not be seen as practitioners? There's nothing elitist about us as practitioners. Now, part of doctoral studies, which is, by the way, as high as you can go with a qualification, an academic qualification, there are a range of criteria by which you are required to assess the quality of a doctoral thesis. Two of those criteria are the most important. The first criterion is, does this thesis make an original contribution to knowledge of the field? I'll say it again. Does the thesis make an original contribution to knowledge of the field? The second criterion is this. Does the thesis demonstrate critical engagement? Does the thesis demonstrate critical engagement? Those are the two main criteria by which you judge a doctoral thesis. Now, all of the doctoral candidates must demonstrate those criteria in action. But I want to suggest now that everything we have heard today also demonstrates those two criteria in action. Everybody here can show how they are making an original contribution to knowledge of the field. You've done it. We've just been listening to somebody talking about their original contribution to knowledge of the field. The field can be lots of different fields. It can be woodwork, engineering, nursing, teaching, however you define it. That's the field. And every person here, and every group of persons here, is making that original contribution to that field. It's original because it's never been done before. People might have written about it or spoken about it, usually in aspirational terms, saying, wouldn't it be wonderful if? What we've seen today and listened to today is people in everyday workplaces also explaining how they are making their original contribution to their field. The other criterion is that a thesis can demonstrate critical engagement. That's also what we have done today. Everybody here, in presenting their work, has been able to explain and describe what they're doing. They can describe what they're doing. We've just been listening to the stories of people improving what they're doing. That's the definition of what they've done. They are explaining it. They can say why they've done it, what they hope to achieve, and they can also show how they are testing the validity of what they are claiming. In other words, producing evidence for us to see that we have good reason to believe them. They're not giving us options for doubt. They are saying to us, this is what we've done, this is why we've done it, and this is why you should believe us. And part of that reason for why we should believe people is to go back to that original idea that we all know what we are doing. If we are professionals, which we all profess to be, we should be able to say, I know what I'm doing, I'm good at my job, and I can produce the evidence to show that I am good at my job. And that's what we've been listening to today. It's an absolute privilege to listen to it. And thank you. Before I sit down and be quiet, I also want to touch on the idea of what is the nature of our contribution. Remember, we're making an original contribution to knowledge of the field, and what is the nature of that contribution? Lots of people have got lots of different ideas, and they write about them in the literatures, and they outline ideas around what might be the nature of our contribution. I want to link this with another idea that a colleague and I was speaking about today, which is the United Nations idea of sustainable development goals. The idea of sustainability is a lovely idea, but the reality is that it's pie in the sky, because nothing is sustainable. Everything comes to an end. The job for us, who actually are here, in the here and now, is how can we contribute to the here and now and the quality of life experience for all of us who are actually in the here and now. And I would like to suggest that everybody in this room is actually doing that. We are contributing to other people's sense of well-being. And by contributing to the sense of well-being of each and every individual, we're contributing to the universe. We're contributing to all of the connections that we have with every other element in the universe. When we speak about what we are doing, as we have seen in all these wonderful presentations, it's so important to remember and to use the language of both practice in the sense of improving our pedagogies, what we are doing, enabling other people to speak for themselves. Those are the practices that we do, and also the research that we are doing, because remember, research is where the knowledge is. Research is where the knowledge is. And that means being able to talk about not only what we have done, descriptions, why we've done it, explanations, but also to comment on the significance of what we have done for ourselves and for other people. And in that way, we find ways of giving meaning to our own lives and helping others to give meaning to their lives. Today marks the end and also the triumph and the acclaim that we should all see for our work. It is terrific work. The work we are producing is second to none in terms of its original contribution to knowledge of the field and demonstration of critical engagement. It's been such a privilege to work with you, and thank you so much. And I would suggest that we should all celebrate our own lives as practitioners and as very powerful knowers. Thank you.